Today, President Trump appointed Kevin Warsh to lead the Federal Reserve. Warsh is a sharp contrast from the man currently in the job as chairman of the Federal Reserve, Trump's arch nemesis, Jerome Powell. Trump says much of the current economic pain comes from Powell's refusal to lower interest rates.
Did Kevin Warsh commit to you that he will push to cut interest rates if he is confirmed?
No, but we talk about it, and I've been following him, and I don't want to ask him that question. I think it's inappropriate, probably would be allowed, but I want to keep it nice and pure. But he certainly wants to cut rates. I've been watching him for a long time.
Picking Warsh is perhaps Trump's last chance to remake the economy before November. With us now, chairman of O'Leary Ventures and cast member on Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, a.k.a. Mr. Wonderful. Welcome back to the program, sir. I think that point in terms of cutting rates is an important one because when it comes to the economy, so much of America feels left behind. This from CNBC. Wealth inequality and the K-shaped economy are more striking than ever. The net worth of America's top 1% hit a record share of nearly 32% in the third quarter of 2025. By comparison, the bottom 50% cumulatively held 2.5% of overall net worth. Are the wealthy in America, the ruling class in America, both political class and business class, understanding of how 50% of America feels?
You know, I understand this narrative, but what's always lost in it is how much these individuals give back from Warren Buffett on down. Just yesterday, Michael Dell, who's probably worth $50 billion, gave $6.2 billion back to the Trump accounts to kids that are born. So they get $1,000 each. I mean, what we don't give credit to these extremely successful entrepreneurs that create hundreds of thousands of jobs in America, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and all those people pay taxes, and they turn around and give all their wealth back. I just want to do a shout out for that because it's lost in this narrative of inequality. It really is, and it's a huge mistake.
Look.
What's made the American economy work for over 200 years is entrepreneurship. It's the idea that you can
No one's disputing that, though. No, nobody's disputing that, and nobody's saying that that somehow is lost. I think what people are saying is that much of the ruling class in America and the wealthy in America don't understand how hard the rest of America has it. This from Politico, December 10th. 45% of Americans say they struggle to afford groceries, 38% housing, 34% health care. No one is begrudging those who have done well. I think there's a lot of Americans who say, how does it seem fair when we can't enjoy or take part in this massive wealth boom? And I think it goes back to this question of how Donald Trump is handling the economy. Do you think he is recognizing, appreciating, and dealing with how so many Americans feel?
Well, this narrative has gone on forever. I mean, you know, you've got very successful entrepreneurs. We're talking about them now. You have the #1 economy on earth, never been beaten, including by the Chinese. People have to ask themselves, would I rather live here or in Cuba?
Yeah, or anywhere else. Fair enough.
Sure, sure. I mean, and so, you know, look, we're not perfect, okay? But I just want to point out that when we take a shot at the wealthy, as they're doing in California, they move to Miami, where I am. I mean, one of the great things about America is democracy and, of course, the competition of states. We want entrepreneurs. I know we beat them up when we say they're too rich. And then I would ask you another question. Who decides? Government? Does Elizabeth Warren decide how much you can make? Who decides that? That's so un-American. And that tax that they're contemplating in California, just deciding randomly to tax people because they're successful, that's un-American. All of this is un-American. Why don't we take pride in the fact that nobody can touch this economy, and we've done it through innovation, not regulation. What you're talking about is some random idea that some individual in government should decide what an individual makes in America. That is un-American, and it's never going to happen, and it's a good thing.
No, sir. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about the idea of fairness in America, that people think that they have a fair shot. at the American dream. And this is not an issue of whether taxes should be raised on the rich, because if that was the issue, I would have brought it up as a question. The question is whether the wealthy in America understand, appreciate, and are cognizant of what the rest of America is going through. For example, here's the Treasury Secretary talking about how parents should deal with whatever money they might have to spend on their children.
To all the moms and dads out there that are watching right now, they should sign up now, right, for Trump accounts during this tax season?
We've already had, just in the past few days, 500,000 families sign up. Rather than giving a toy for a birthday, for a holiday, they can contribute to these accounts.
You don't think this sounds a little tone deaf, a little let them eat cake?
No, actually, I like this Trump account idea. If you give a child $1,000 when they're born and they can't touch it till they're 18, and they put it in the S&P 500, which is the engine, the greatest engine on earth of the economy, they'll probably end up with between $60,000 and $80,000 at 18. And if they stay to 21, it could be over 100. So that's a better source of income than Social Security, in my view, because it's untouched by fees. It's like 1 basis point of fees. I like the idea a lot. I think this idea that, you know, you talk about these wealthy people that you suggest may be tone deaf. Most of them started with nothing. They pursued the American dream. They were wildly successful. You know, Michael Dell was in college when he started his computer company in his dorm. He's worth $50 billion. He's created millions of jobs. He's paid billions in taxes. And he just gave $6.2 billion to this idea of the Trump account. I mean, come on, we need 1,000 more Michael Dells. And we can make them in America because we believe in capitalism. I can't, you know, every time I hear this narrative and your fair share, they're already paying 54% tax in California and New York. I mean, what do you want? Take it all from them? It's ridiculous. We need these entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you'll notice I didn't say fair share, but I think it was John Kennedy who said, if we can't save the many who are help the many who are poor, we can't save the few who are rich. And the question becomes, and I ask this respectfully to those who have certainly succeeded, and nobody should begrudge them that. Why do you think that in the past, the American success story, I'm thinking Sam Walton, Warren Buffett, were so celebrated? Even Michael Dell, I remember when Dell Computers first exploded. And yet now the billionaire class is so much more disdained in America, and that in some ways there is now a feeling that America has moved from a uniquely fair economy without an entrenched aristocracy. That's what made America great in the beginning, to an entrenched aristocracy. Where does that anger come from?
We're a very partisan country now. That's happened over the last 10 years. It's just the times we're in. But let's remember one thing that I think is bipartisan, in the sense that the #1 export of America is not energy, it's not technology, it's the American dream. And that is exactly what entrepreneurship is. The idea that it's not the pursuit of greed and money, it's the pursuit of personal freedom. Only we can provide that by allowing entrepreneurs to do what they do. Now, I don't know of many countries where people risk drowning under a river with barbed wire to get into. I don't see that happening in North Korea, in Cuba, in Russia, or in China. This is where everybody on earth wants to start their dream business and make it happen. And so let's not lose sight of that. It's a bipartisan idea. The #1 mandate of the President of the United States, regardless of party or who's in the White House, is to maintain the American dream. That's the #1 mandate, the #1 policy. Let's not mess with that. That is the engine that creates all the wealth in this economy, with all of its faults, including the ones you're talking about.
Couldn't agree with you more there. Noteworthy that now more than ever Americans don't necessarily think it's possible, but your point is well taken about what makes it possible indeed. Kevin O'Leary, thank you. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.